In the U11 coaches, we have, sorry, I've got something popped up. Graham Thomas is the U11 coach, and we've got A2 to A2, A3, and A4 are going to be parent coaches likely, although we are working on some opportunities to get some hired staff as well. So that's the lineup for this year. So welcome to the Thunderbirds family. So as we start up the new season, we'd like to have a few words to talk to you about the association and the mission and vision of where we're going to get to. Let Whitney talk through some of these. So Whitney.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruce. So again, everybody, my name is Whitney Uskevich. I was brought on July 25th to help you with the start of our season and moving into continuing the legacy and the future of the Thunderbirds. So I'm very happy and I'm very proud to be a part of your Thunderbirds family. And I'm very excited with the passion that your board and your executive has already put into starting this season. And I do thank you for any patience.
Not at all.
Sorry, guys, I'm just going to mute everybody there. So anyway, sorry, I apologize for that. Just very happy with the energy that's coming from our executive and a lot of our volunteers that have already stepped up. So I know there's some of us on the call here that are in the U11 division. And so I just want to say thank you in advance for all the effort you're going to put into helping us get through this process. The beginning of a season is always very large in terms of just getting it off the ground for any size of an organization. And with you guys, there's a lot of people that we're putting through assessments and that we're ensuring that they get their opportunity to play on some great teams this year. So again, I just want to thank you and welcome you to the start of your 2022-23 season, and wear your colors because we're very excited to see your pride of your Thunderbirds. So if you have your socks, please wear those. If you have any neutral red or blue socks, those are always great so you can feel part of our community. That being said, we can move into our mission. Some of you may be familiar with it, but if you are, again, new, let's go over our mission. So we really want to work on creating a rewarding hockey experience, something that is more than just putting in the time. We really want this experience to be something that they can't get, they being our athletes and our members, that you don't get that from other areas in our community. So you come to us. It's founded on our character and our teamwork. And a huge part of that is our pursuit of excellence, not only in our standards of what we try to offer you as an organization to you, the members, all right, sorry about that, guys. So we do take that mission, not just on our operational level from the back end. We want to make sure that it's getting pushed forward to our members, and that's you. And then also our coaches who are directly dealing with our members and our athletes. So we are thankful that you guys are part of that process. Go ahead, Bruce. We'll move on to the next slide, please. With our mission, you have to have a vision. And our vision is to have a thriving hockey community. We can stand proud and say, where a lot of communities are talking about losing members, we can proudly say that we've gained additional members this year. It's a wonderful problem to have. It may be, a result of us having to juggle a couple extra things. So again, we thank you for any patience where things maybe have gone faster last year. There's a lot of transition, and we definitely understand to get you that information for your family and your planning. But we really, really take pride that we are thriving. We have more people coming to the T-Birds, and they understand that you as the membership are putting forth the image that they want to be a part of. So take pride in that yourselves. That's our coaches, our officials, and like I said, yourselves. Be valued and be respected, and definitely when you're on the rink, get engaged out there. It's always more fun when you're not an observer. So put your hand up and ask how you can get involved. Go ahead, Bruce. When we talk about our code of hockey and our leadership, we want to put ourselves to the highest standards of conduct. And so that is at every level. That's on how we operate as a board, how we operate as a staff. That comes right down to not only the quality of work, but how we communicate. And so that's a a standard we want to make sure is being passed down to not just the operational level, but down to you as the members who are part of these teams. And so we ask that you yourselves amongst your teams, when you're out in the community and you're actually being ambassadors of the Thunderbirds, that you hold yourselves at that highest standard of conduct. We want to make sure that our players are seeing us acting that way, and that they know that they have the tools and the resources to grow and to succeed into future leadership roles. They are going to mock our behaviors as adults and leaders. So we want to make sure that when they are watching us, we're putting our best foot forward. With that being said, in the tryout process that you're entering or you're currently in, we do take pride in our transparency and the accountability of all of the decisions are made. We do not take any of these decisions lightly. And that's one reason why I believe it's so successful and people stay and continue to come to our organization. So that's a huge thing that we should be proud of. We'll move forward. That being said, as we move into that, it kind of relates into our sportsmanship. And BC Hockey, along with our hockey organizations, the Canucks, the Hockey Canada, and NCCP, which is our national coaching, they recognize the importance of the sportsmanship in the stands. That, again, as I mentioned, they're watching us, they being our athletes. There are younger generations who are going to lead us in the future, and they can see how we treat each other. And so as a parent, basically BC Hockey has helped us put together a program that'll help us maintain our sportsmanship while we're watching our games. So that involves our parents. Like, what should we be looking for from the game? We want to have fun. You're here to watch your children succeed. You're here to celebrate in their successes, and you're here to be surprised by areas that they have grown. So we want to make sure that we please create a safe and a positive environment. We have coaches on our team. Let them coach. You get to be the parent. You get to talk about all the wonderful things that your athlete has, all the positive characteristics that make them so great. So help promote those in the car rides to create that positive environment when they enter the dressing room. We want to make sure that we have a place that they can learn. They don't have very many opportunities nowadays to get that team mentality. School projects and groups aren't the same as being a part of a team. And so here's a wonderful opportunity for us to teach them those values. They get to make lifelong friends. Some of us still play with people that we once played with. And that's a huge opportunity to make lifelong members in this game, and not just people trying to only make the top of the top teams. Hockey is more than just that. So we want to learn to be gracious in our wins and in our losses this year. We learn from those losses and we celebrate the successes of the lessons learned in our wins. Player to parent relationships, it's kind of what I talked about just recently when I said have those positive car conversations. Focus on the enjoyment of your child. They know that there's things they're messing up on, and they're constantly getting told, whether it's from their coaches, their teachers, their peers. Everyone is constantly pointing out the areas that they have deficiencies. So let's counter that balance and make sure that we highlight those areas that you as a parent are only unique to seeing. You're privy to being able to be a part of their lives in such an intimate area. So celebrate those areas that only you can see. Support your child's endeavors. If they have aspirations, let's support them, as opposed to pointing out areas where they may fall short. Let's help them have that belief that they can achieve what they want. We want to make sure that we have an acceptable behavior. So if there are things that we're frustrated in, try to have a time and place. Try not to allow any frustration that you might have to kind of push down on them. They're so sensitive, they'll pick up on it. And there is a time and a place to be able to have those frustrating conversations. We just want to reaffirm that they have their self-confidence during those practices and the games, and that it's about the teamwork and not necessarily the individual. We play with more than just one person on the ice, so we want to keep hitting home those concepts. We want to have it player focused on their participation and how they were engaged in the environment, not the results. As long as they're engaged and they're working, that's what we need from them right now. Parents, we want to be positive. We need to be understanding, and we have to be responsible and accountable for our actions. Again, they're watching us, and we do need to be those role models and teach them what sportsmanship is. Otherwise, it's just a fancy word. Parent-to-parent relationships, it can be really difficult. I've coached for many, many years, and we both all get competitive. Parents, players, referees, coaches, everybody wants to get into the spirit of competition. But we just want to make sure that the sportsmanship of that competition remains in front and foremost. So in the heat of the moment, let's just try to take a breather. Let's be respectful and responsible. Let's not do anything that we might have to say sorry for later. Let's take a deep breath, assess the situation, and take the proper steps. We want to model that behavior that we just talked about in the last 4 slides to make sure that we can present that model at all times. And it is on us as the adults to set that example and to help work as a unit. If we have peers in our group that we know need support, support them. Don't egg them on. Let's support them and let's get through the season in a great environment with everybody staying in the rinks and everyone having a great time. I'm going to move it over now to Bruce. I thank you so much for spending the little bit of talking to me. I'll connect with you guys. And again, I'm going to hand this over to Bruce.
Sorry, I had to figure out where I unmuted. Back to me, communications. Communications is, sorry. As the season picks up, we're going to have communications a lot. A lot of things are going to come out that you're going to have to know, to understand, to be in the right places, to be in the right time. Also to express your concerns to the coaches and to make sure that everyone's on the same page for the season. There's lots of information that's going to be flying around. You should plan to make your year great and make yourself a valued part of the team. If you have questions, ask the right people who can give you factual answers. Raise questions around safety, health environments, ensuring policies are being followed. Everybody's eyes are really important to make sure that there is a positive environment, that there are no concerns about safety, and things like the two deep rule are being followed, and that we are actually making sure that the kids are going to be successful. Team managers and coaches should ensure the parents know about any team rules. It's always unfortunate that somebody says, I didn't understand that that was part of the requirements for the team. Make sure everyone understands and they're all on the same page so you can support each other and do the best you can to be the most positive team experience possible. No surprises. And most importantly, follow the 24-hour rule. If something comes up, if a concern comes up, step away, wait 24 hours, come back and have a good discussion with the team staff. And then you can then move forward with a positive outcome. Excuse me. Landlines. What do you do? So the communications model that we have within Thunderbirds is that there's the association rep group, coaches and managers and parents. And they all work together and talk through this matrix. This matrix comes from PCHA, which is our overarching body that includes Thunderbirds and the other associations. We need to resolve our communications and our issues internally to make sure that we're going to be successful and we're going to come to a positive outcome. The one thing you should note here, though, is that the association president is the only one with a line from our box out to the real world. And the managing director of PCHA only wants to deal with issues that are at the association level. If anybody needs or feels they have the need to communicate with PCHA, they will very politely but very firmly push back the communication to Thunderbirds and say, you guys need to deal with this because it's your association. In the worst case, they will fine us for allowing these communications to go ahead, but the same thing's going to happen. They're going to push it back on our head. So it's something that's really important that we foster communications internally as best we can. Maltreatment. Recently, Hockey Canada has rewritten the rule book and included something called maltreatment. Maltreatment, you can find out about in the official hockey rules you can download online. They pulled together all kinds of different serious offenses and put into here. Maltreatment includes unsportsmanlike conduct, disrespect or abuse for harassing behavior, spitting, physical harassment of officials, and discrimination. Hockey Canada has stated, and I'll read to you because it's important, that their belief in this is that we have made a firm commitment to making the game safe and inclusive for all who wish to participate. And the introduction of Section 11, the maltreatment section in the rule book, provides our 13 members, the provinces and territories, local hockey associations and officials across the country with clearly defined criteria for enforcing the rules related to many forms of inappropriate conduct. Now, this is pervasive, and it's not just the rule book on the ice, it's off the ice, it's everywhere. And we need to take a leadership position in making sure that the kids and the people and everyone associated with the association, all of our members and the people we interact with, are dealt with respect and positively. On the other side of it is that officials on the ice and the leadership within Thunderbirds, we will seek out what's going on to find out what's happening. It's quite serious, and we want to make sure that we are on top of it and ahead of the curve on it. So, Whitney?
Excellent. So again, the biggest thing is that we want to protect not only ourselves, but the individuals within our care. So we want maltreatment. We don't want maltreatment, but maltreatment includes violation acts that result in harm or the potential of physical or psychological harm. And so that's to be brutally honest, that's a large kind of blanket statement. The areas of where we need to ensure that we have coverage is in our dressing rooms foremost. We have tactics that we can work with our coaching staff to help them how they manage the time of the athletes in there. But the most important part is to ensure that we have what we have gotten to know is called the 2 deep rule, meaning that there are 2 parents or individuals who are not of the same family, that are of different families, that can ensure that there is visualization of what's going on within those types of rooms. Not because we need to be babysitting them, but because the reality is kids will not act up if they know they are being monitored, or the case of it is less likely. And again, we are responsible when these children come into our facilities, they become part of our teams, they become of what we call sanctioned events, that they are allowed to be themselves, however they express themselves, and however they refer to themselves, that they're not going to be mocked, judged, or critiqued, or have any type of lasting damage. And so it's our responsibility as volunteers, as well as our actual organization. And so we don't need to keep hitting, but we understand that we need to be watching and keeping our eyes open for maltreatment and all the forms that it can come in, because it's not a small subject. It is a very serious subject, and it is treated in a serious manner. And so when we talk to our athletes and we talk to, those of us who put our hands up to stand up to be our safety officers or dressing room monitors, you have to understand that there is actually a responsibility. And so we just want to kind of hit that home to ensure that we're aligning our core values that are also part of our Canadian sport commitment and values. So when it talks about specifically Hockey Canada, we are a part of Hockey Canada. It is part of our governing body. We get our insurance from them. And so therefore we need to ensure that we stay insurable, that we follow codes of conduct. And so they're committed to contributing that physical, psychological, social, and spiritual health of the individuals. Doesn't matter of their varying abilities, their backgrounds, or their interests. Everybody's included and everyone's allowed to come play hockey. We firmly believe that it's not only, when we're in the sports environments, but that in all environments can be inclusive, and that these values can be realized and they can be championed. So programming should have the reasonable expectations that it'll be an environment that is accessible and inclusive. So that is literally what I just kind of reiterated in the last 2 slides, that we ourselves as Thunderbirds not only create this environment for our actual members, but for the guests of our members. Anybody who's coming from another community should always have a positive experience when they come and play us. And so it is our responsibility to create that programming, and that trickles down to our individual teams and how, again, we treat ourselves as parents and amongst our teams. Our officials, they're responsible. Our coaches, they have responsibility. When they take their training, they all themselves have a code of conduct that they must follow, where they are responsible for helping create these environments. And it is very important that our team officials uphold those standards, and how we treat those team officials, whether it is our safety officers, maybe they have to make a hard call about the safety of a child. Maybe it's our coach who has to make a safety, whether it was our room monitors who monitored something and had no choice but to report to safety a situation, or whether it's our actual treatment of timekeepers and officials. all of those individuals are held to a code of conduct and they themselves deserve to be respected. And so we want to make sure that we prevent any disorderly conduct before it even happens. So have a game plan, have an action plan. How do we deal with conflict and what's our resolution plan? You move it forward there for me, Bruce?
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay.
So we just
So-
want to, yeah, are you going to go on this one or do you want me to?
Yeah, no, just to hammer it home in the rule book, that the forms of maltreatment are very, very broad and very specific in the what people should expect, which you should not have any intimidation or any insults that relate to race, national or ethnic origin, skin color or language spoken, religion, faith or beliefs, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital or family status, genetic characteristics, or disability. Everyone has a part in pushing all this stuff back, and it's just a zero tolerance kind of world. And Thunderbirds is fully aligned with the maltreatment discrimination rule, and Thunderbirds has had a policy in place for a long time relating to this. There is zero tolerance for this. And so no matter what the venue of the situation, discrimination is dealt with immediately and reported appropriately. And we really want to make sure that everybody has a part in this. So, rep information specifically. Whitney?
So this is probably the meat and potatoes that you all been waiting for. So those of us who are already in the process have already gone through their skill session. They've had some scrimmages. Our U13s and U15s have already been going through a week or so of their evaluation. And we're about to kick off our U11s coming up tomorrow morning and continuing on with our U18s. So everybody is now getting into the process of their rep tryouts. And so what are some of the similarities that we've seen across the board? Well, every group, whether it was U11 all the way up to U18, are getting those skill session. And that's usually what we're kicking it off with. U11s will start us with some goaltending tomorrow, and then the players will jump in on those skill sessions. After that, they get an opportunity to play against their peers, and that will be in a controlled scrimmage environment. So that's where we have a consistent amount of times on our periods so that every players get fair ice time, even continuing with our goaltenders, ensuring that they have fair rotations. And there could be situations, and I just kind of want to let you know that, like, if you see a goaltender with their jersey inside out, those are sometimes how we keep things fair. We call that a ghost, and goalies are very familiar with that type of a process, just to ensure that we have someone in net playing hard, and we also have equal ice time for our goalies. So in that saying, all of that rotation and all of those logistics, those are all thought out in advance. It's never a fluke if you put your hand up to help it on the bench. You're not running the lines. You're not making the calls. I hate that it's not going to be your first break as a coach, unfortunately, but we do have a program that you can follow to make being a bench assistant very easy if you volunteer during this process. And we do need them. So if you do know people and you do feel confident and you can follow the game plan, then I would love for you to come out and help us. So those types of situations guarantee that that tryout process with the skill sessions, with the scrimmages and the rotations of ice time are all transparent. It's all fair. And it's an opportunity for each athlete to showcase. As we move forward out of that process, where now you're starting to see, for example, our U13 and our U15 divisions, they've moved into more what we call their working groups. It's that second phase. They've gone through their practice sessions. They've gone through their scrimmage games. Everyone's gotten an opportunity to be vetted by the evaluation team. And now they're in these working groups. So the working groups are now led by the coaches. And so as we look at our U15, 13, and 18 divisions, we have coaches that are paid coaches in there. They're going to be taking over the team. The roster sizes have been reduced. So after that phase one, there is a chance of potential releases or reassignments into the rec division, and the group sizes moving into the working groups in that phase two, as you see on the chart in front of you, those are reduced. So that is that last phase for those athletes to fight for the position on the team and to get an opportunity to play against other minor hockey associations to see what it would be like to actually have the team made. The coaches will make those decisions. There are reassignments that happen at that point, and then players trickle down. And if we do see a bottom tier, for example. So if it was an A4 or an A2 or an A3, wherever that finalizing tier for our rep teams is, obviously at the end of that, there would be a reassignment into our rec division. And we do have lots of the processes. If you are wanting to know specifically more details, you can always check that out on our website, on our rep page under the process and policies. You can read up all about it and see every kind of situation that might pop into your head. So that's where you start seeing after that phase 2 that our teams are finalized. We get submission from the coaches, the rosters get approved, and then they officially get rostered. And that becomes their team. They follow through their regular season. PCHA trends are that you'll start seeing exhibition games as early as October, and they use those games amongst other associations, to do what's called your balancing in the league and your tiering. So you'll get basically after about a month of hockey, you as in your coach and your team would be assigned your placement. And that's where you'll find out what flight or what tier you're playing in. Then you play regular season games. We have a little bit of Christmas. We come back and get ready to fight for playoffs. We have playoffs. And before we know it, the season's always over. And we're wondering what happened to Christmas. So that's kind of a tryout process right to the very end of it, a rough throw through. Go ahead, Bruce. We'll move on to the next slide. So there are costs involved in being part of our high performance, our rep process. There is a full breakdown on the team website in the season registration section. So if you are trying to maybe get into it, grab your notepad and just scroll down on the registration fee section, just to make some notes. Each team's fee is based on what they'll receive. So our A1 prices are different than our A2, 3, or 4. You also have to take into account too, when you're considering the rep tryouts, if you're not, if this is your first year moving into that there is your rep fee, but then your team will have a meeting with you'll have a team manager. You'll have to elect who that is. You'll also have a team treasurer and your coaches. So they're going to put together a proposal that they should be presenting at your coach meeting with your family when you guys have finally solidified your team, on what tournaments you're going to participate into. Are they in-house? Are they in town, out of town? Because there will obviously be fees that are very unique to each team on those types of activities. And so that's why it is a good idea to get a general idea, but to have an open mind and to generate questions you might have when you finally land on that team and have that first meeting.
Just one thing to interject, Whitney, a question just popped up during the assessment from the last slide. The evaluators who are looking during the games are a variety. They're not just the coaches. There are a variety of the evaluators who are working on it during the time. So it is not just a singular coach driven process.
Yeah. So for example, in our U13 and 15 division, we had 8 independent evaluators, and only one of those was the coach of that team. And so we really do ensure that there are no bias and people with no hidden agendas, so that every player does get a fair shake and they all get graded on that same standard. So that we really do work very hard, and we use your fees, and we pay for these types of people who know what they're talking about. These aren't just backyard evaluators who have a good time every season. These are people that do it for their profession, to ensure that we have quality across all of our divisions.
And one other thing with the costs that are shown here, these are taken from our presentation last year, and we didn't update them fully. They're very, very similar to the ones from last year. So take these as plus or minus are exactly correct. My apologies for that, but they're very, very close. And with the fees themselves also come clothing. This year, our Associate Director of Rep Hockey, Steve Gully, has gone above and beyond and made it so that when we have our team equipment that's got the logos on it, it's available earlier in the season. I know that last year, due to supply issues and other things, that people weren't getting their stuff until well into the season. But I believe that's all going really well, and Steve's done a great job on the whole thing. We're now probably going to have all this stuff ready to go once we form the teams. So thanks to him. And this is what his costing looks like now. He's even gone so far as to give you the cost with PST in and the PST out based on the age of your kid. So kudos to Steve on this one. Very impressive. Okay.
So as part of the Thunderbirds, if you're not already aware, there is a high performance program within the Thunderbirds minor hockey offering. So the Thunderbirds rep program is shifting to a high performance model. What that encompasses is much more than just the practices in the game. So it's access to additional skill development. We have lots of coached mentorship, and I'm actually very excited about that because a huge background of mine does come in coach mentorship in developing coaches. I have a master coach developer certification, and so that's just a fancy name that I know how to train trainers. And so I'm very excited with the resources that we have. And so that's a really great model with our high performance to ensure that our coaches are also getting the support to pass down to our players. There's skill instruction for parent coach teams. And so that's where I'm saying we have all that extra support that I'm really excited about. So even though some teams may have parent coaches, we're not just going to say, here's your ticket, we'll see you in April. We're more invested in how are you doing? How can we support you? How can we ensure that this team is getting exactly the resources that they need? For U13A1 and all of 15 and 18A1s, what is with those particular teams is there's access to the oval. So that just had the Richmond Oval is what we're referring to, HP Dryland training. So there is an in-person training facility there. And so those U13, 15, and 18 teams will have access. It's part of their program as part of that team. They also have mental training and other seminars that will pop up with organization of your teams. They'll organize those with your coaches. You'll also have access to video analysis. So the goal of this is to provide a strong program that will develop overall athletes at a lower cost. So you don't have to become part of a private academy to get some of the benefits that those academies say that they're going to offer. So we want to try and offer you that same standard that we know that we can, and to try and make it at a more cost efficient. So that means that you can stay with your school that you're currently in. You don't have to move, and you can stay in your community and play with your friends. So we really, really are excited about our high performance model. Go ahead, Bruce, next slide. So that is a wrap up. I know there was a lot of information that was tossed at you in 35 minutes. I do apologize, I talk fast, but we are going to open it up to questions. So you can either unmute yourself. If it gets a little chaotic, you can put your hand up. If you're not sure how to do that, so wiggle your mouse, and there's a thing called reactions. And you can just click on that and it gives you a hand. If you thought it was funny, go ahead, give me a little funny with some cry laughs. I'll have a good time too. Go ahead, we'll open it up for questions. Go ahead, Sandy, you can unmute yourself.
Hi,
Let's see if I can help you out there, Sandy. I had you for a second.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're on, you're live.
Okay, awesome. I just have a question about helmets, royal blue, or can you wear the navy from last year?
Great question. Thanks for bringing it up. Our policy is royal blue. And again, I apologize for any confusion that may have happened prior. I wasn't here, so I can't really take much more onus than that. But what I can say is, if you have just recently repurchased a helmet and you did purchase a navy, we are not expecting you to go out today, tomorrow, get that helmet. When it is time for you to upgrade, because we do know that children grow quite quickly. So when it is time to upgrade to the royal blue. That is our helmet color. There is no perfect match to our brand new jerseys. So we are going with the royal blue. It's in our policy. It still looks great. And so that's the clarification on that question.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem. Just looking at a note here on the chat from James. James, I'm going to get Bruce to type you back an answer in the chat box there. He can help you look at that. Just looking for anybody who might have a hand in the air, wave it like you don't care. Hey, James, you're on the air. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I got a direct message back saying that the A2 level was a different price because it was a parent coach, whereas A3 had a paid coach. So thank you.
Awesome, no problem. I'm glad we could answer that for you.
It was actually a community answer, and that's great. Thank you. There are some grizzled veterans out there who know a lot.
So I am just clicking through everybody's pictures, looking for any hands in the air.
One of the questions that came up is how many exhibition games there are. 2 to 4. Depends.
Yeah, usually the standard on how this preseason works, there are organizations in minor hockey that are very aggressive and they try to book a lot, but kind of the standard is that we'll offer 2 home games in hope that we get 2 away games. And so what we have budgeted in our ice time is to allocate at least 2 home exhibition ice times so that each team can offer, hey, come on over and play us in the Thunderbirds. And then usually it's reciprocated that they also host. So it doesn't have to be exactly, for example, Thunderbirds to North Van both times. It's just that there is an understanding that everyone is out there trying to organize at least 2 home games in their own community, which allows us to get on average 2 home and 2 away during this time. Okay, so I'm just looking at Laura. Thanks so much for your question here, girl. Says, since the last 2 years were affected by the COVID-19, what can we expect in U13 in terms of some tournaments? What you are starting to notice, for those of you who understand how to operate the BC Hockey website, there's a section in there that is specifically tournaments, and you can filter it if you want to go with rec, recreational, or rep, if you're looking for a tier 1, tier 2, etc. So you just populate it with your filters. And what we're seeing is we're starting to see that almost every week, if not every couple days, more and more tournaments are getting populated as people finalize their prices. So the word on the street, Laura, is that people, meaning minor hockey associations across the province, are working to probably have the most to normal season that we've been allowed to have up to this date. There's even consideration that some tournaments are allowing across borders. So when we talk about sometimes Seattle, for example, can come up and play with us. They have not been a part of our league play, I think, for the last 2 seasons. You will start to see some of them coming in. And if you want to get more details on like what that regulation means, you will have to keep your eyes on U Sport and also your the government health page, because we have not been physically directed by anything other than having your ability to cross the border. So Michelle had a question here on the T-Birds clothing in U13. So the U13 and A1 or any A1s, from this is how I understand it, there is a specific kind of wardrobe that they, or clothing apparel that they will have part of their fees to ensure that everybody has that standardized. When you move into your A2s, your A3s, the clothing that we have pre-ordered is available with the consideration that all of those teams require clothing. What we have is an opportunity to go to Cyclone Taylor in advance to get any sizing done, so that whatever team you end up on, you can say, yeah, we've gone into Cyclone Taylor over the weekend, we've tried it on. I know that my son or my daughter is going to be wearing X size, youth large, bottoms top. When you do have that team meeting, you then have that opportunity to fast track the situation where either you're just going to basically be putting it in, they being Cyclone Taylor will organize the product, and you just then go, okay, great, we've collected our first round of fees. We go to Cyclone Taylor and we pay for those fees. Or you go, okay, guys, what are we deciding? We want a number, we want a name. And then you just have to basically wait for the stitching time of whatever that additional detailing is. So there is clothing and apparel for all of the teams. It's just, it's not necessarily the same kind of mandatory as the A1 teams have structured in their thing. So I hope that answered that there for you, Michelle.
Just to jump back for a second about tournaments, the tournaments are coming online. Typically in a season, you can expect 2 to 4 tournaments. Based on the speed they're coming in, it looks, I mean, it's up to the other associations to work through their various COVID protocols and their comfort levels with it. So it looks pretty good right now. And as Whitney said, go to the BC Hockey website and you can see what tournaments are going to be available. And if you want to find out what the US ones are, you go to the US Hockey ones and find them down there, the ones in Seattle and places like that. But quite frankly, it's exciting that they're all starting to come back, and it's just pretty freaking cool. So the other question that came up was during the parent coached exhibition games. There's an interim coach or an interim parent who will be assigned to do that, to run the bench on those games. And there's no assignments that are provided for lineups and positions and things. So we'll set it up, we'll make it happen, but there's no coaches specifically assigned other than ones that are potentially available. We can't assign coaches because you don't have a team formed yet. We can't officially roster you. And that's why they're exhibition games.
And I also just want to, I know it can be a little unnerving when you saw the chart there at the U11 and you were like, oh my goodness, it just says parent coach, parent coach. We do have parents that will be able to coach those teams, whether they themselves have a professionalism in coaching or whether they're just really strong approved coaches that we know can lead our teams. Those individual parent coaches, whether it was in our U11 or even we have some in our U13, they are not influencing the selection of the team. So I just want to be 100% transparent in our process that those games, even though we have, substitute coaches or leads helping those exhibition games on the bench, those games, and as well as the phase 1 of the tryout process, are all evaluated by independent evaluation team. And so there is no potential to say, this parent coach chose all their friends or any of that type of dialogue. I just want to be 100% honest and assure you that the U11 is going to be a very fair and transparent process. And so I just want to be 100% clear. So everybody feels comfortable and everyone feels confident that every player who is registered for that process will get a fair shake at that process. Just as well as our U13s are getting currently in the moment. So I just want to help you guys if anyone was nervous about that. There was an Andrew Taylor, you had asked here, will the players be receiving an assessment on phase 1? Yes, in terms of if anyone is reassigned into the house / rec division after the phase 1, they all get kind of what I'm calling a report card. They get a breakdown of feedback of how they performed, where their assessment is, and areas that they do need to improve. As we move into the working groups, you are more than welcome to request if you'd like to get some of the notes on how you did. No problem. That request would just be an email to myself. My name is Crazy Long. You can either steal it from the picture right now, or you can go on the website and just click through the staff to get a quick link to my email address. But anybody that is moved from a team, so if you were placed in a working group A1, for example, and you're moved into 2 or 2 to 3, or at the very end from 4 to recreation, anytime that there is that movement down, It will also accompany, like I said, sorry, the report card, because I come from a skill background. I value, as you mentioned, it is very valuable. I think people need to know where their deficiencies are so they know where to focus their energy on getting better and reaching their goals. So I just want to let you know, Andrew, that's the process. Chani was asking here about goalie evaluations. Do goalies attend the other sessions? Yes, please, please, please. If you look on the website, it has the player assignment in the skill session, and there's also a section where you see a G in front of the number, or if there's not a number, you see the goalie's name. Those are also attending all sessions, games, scrimmages, and they have their own individual sessions. So just making sure that you guys are good to go, ready for tomorrow morning. Okay, Michelle, awesome, great. Andrew, great. And Jinsun, no problem, sir. Are there any other questions? I haven't been looking through the pictures, so I'm just doing that now.
I think we're good. And any of the questions you have, you can email myself, Steve, or Whitney. I think there's one coming up, but I think it's time we let the U18s to U13s go and talk about some U11 stuff. But there is one question still outstanding with their hand up. I see James.
Yeah, hi, it's James Prentice. I'm with U11, so I could wait if you'd like, but maybe I'll just ask it now since I'm unmuted. Is there any consideration this year for the U11 groups to adjust the practice times and offering up potentially primetime ice time, so early evening for at least one of the weekly practice times? I know that the 6 a.m. practice times for the younger kids are challenging, and they're also challenging for the coaching staff too throughout the whole entire season. So I just wanted to find out if the team is considering adding in some evening practice times for those groups.
Thanks for the question, James. This is the conversation that every minor hockey association basically can lose sleep on almost. I've been doing this for 12 years in multiple different associations, and every association, unfortunately, is having no choice but to have their U11s at potential 6 a.m. or even some of them on the North Shore have been even early in the 5 a.m.s just because of restriction of ice. It is what it is. So has there been consideration to look at the schedule and to try and make it easier for our membership, and understanding that traffic gets worse and worse every day? So even getting our leaders to those sessions is definitely a consideration that we constantly work on. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we did have a whole bunch, about 80 new people join our association. So that also put pressure on us having to manage our ice costs, and not only costs, but just having ice physically. We weren't able to get more ice from the city. And the hard part is we do have to somewhat be very polite in our demands, because we know the cities are juggling their own programs, which they will not give up ice time that works for them with their programs. They kind of have a monopoly on that. And then areas that we do have maybe an opportunity to search for better ice times come at a very, very high premium. And so again, to keep conscious of what those cost prices are and to try and take advantage of as many city subsidized pricing to keep it down, we do have to, it is the biggest jigsaw puzzle any minor hockey association deals with. So it's not the answer you want, because I can't say that I have ice for you, but it is the unfortunate kind of political answer that we constantly work our schedules. We constantly take those types of things into consideration. And it's a trend that we just kind of can't get around, having U11s at an early ice time. So I do apologize on behalf of that.
Questions? Okay. So I think we can let the 11s to 18s go, or the 13 to 18s go, and with our thanks for being part of this. That's great. And we'll hold on to the U11s. If you hang on, we'll fire the slide deck up. It's a lot shorter, so it should go fairly quickly and you can ask questions. a lot of you are transitioning. So thank you very much, everybody, and hang on U11s, and we'll start that up in just a second. Okay. Okay, I'm going to make the assumption that anybody who's here really wants to be here because you have a U11 player and you're finding out what's going on right now. Just for people coming in from the U9 world, it is different in the development of rep hockey. One of the things is that in the community hockey stream, the house team, the recreational stream, the goal of forming teams is to make sure that they're balanced so that we have a similar set of skills spread across all of the teams. So any team has to compete against any other team. And that's a requirement by many levels. PCHA, for example, the overarching body for us, looks at the teams, looks at the results as they play, and tells us they think some team has got a little too much of one level of play and another one has too little, and they get us to fix them. So the goal with that group is to make sure that you have a nice set of teams that everybody's got a chance to win every time out. In rep hockey, the teams are selected through tryouts and the teams are actively tiered. So the A1 team will have the top players, top defensive players, the top forward players, the top goalies, and then it proceeds down from there. Excuse me, I gotta get my mouse going here. Whitney can speak to the tryout and evaluations for the for U11.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking it through. So the U11, as you've kind of already gone through, if you were attending this week's Pathways, it is a slightly staggered start time, as you've noticed. And so, and this is a decision that has not just been our association. This is something that now with COVID, it almost feels like it's been going on since the dawn of time, but never really come to real fruition until recently. So there's that pathway as what you might have been already attending. There's pathway skates. And so those skates were an opportunity for your player to get back on the ice, to just kind of shake off some of the nerves, to see some of the kids that we'll see maybe during this tryout process or not. And just to kind of give them that taking the edge off and the pressure to have to perform at the absolute best on day one. We're trying to remove that. We get them in school. So there's a long discussion that we could have if you want to get into the psychology of why this is happening. But the reality of the situation is this is what we are governed. We are governed by not only our PCHA, but also through our BC Hockey all the way up to the Pathways from Hockey Canada. And so everybody's doing it. So don't feel like our association is only the uniqueness of this. Everybody has moved into this format in their own way. They give starting ice times, and then they give you the opportunity to finally get into your actual tryout process after the completion of the week of school. With today being Friday, I believe we have now come to that conclusion of their first week of school. So what you'll see is that the U11 players, they're evaluated by non-parent head coaches. And so that was what I was saying with the external non-biased party evaluation team, pardon me. And we do make sure that it's not just one or two, because it kind of can turn into he said, she said, opinion wise. We try to get a large enough pool that there's a fair ability for people to have slightly different opinions and to be able to mark kids so that it's not just one person's opinion on what makes a great hockey player. So we allow multiple people. And one T-Birds hockey staff member, myself, Bruce, we're always overseeing this process. It is never blind where people aren't being accountable. Usually after every day, we get together with our evaluation team and we discuss any discrepancies that we saw as we're monitoring it live. Just so you know, their scores and everything is a live process that we can monitor. So if anything is red flagged, we pull that up and we go through it to make sure that there's no major discrepancies getting through. When we move into the exhibition series, that's when you're going to see that we're going to try and get evaluators to those games as well. So that again, because we have a large group of parent coaches in this division, that we have the ability to let players go through those different phases, to play against other associations and to have that fair, non-biased evaluation. As we move forward, go ahead there, Bruce, to the next slide.
Okay.
Mhm. So once teams are formed, our main focus is to please have fun. Try and immediately we're going to have our coaching staff dissipate all of that stress. Let's settle in, let's have fun. Let's make sure that we're focusing on those basic skills. And so in that U11 pathway, what you see the focus on that first month, so teams will most likely be formed and finalized by the end of September. So what you're really looking on in that ice time, as soon as your team is formalized, all the way until just past Thanksgiving into almost November, is refining those skills. We are working with our mentorship team so that those coaches, we don't want them having to teach systems on the first. If you can't pass, skate, or shoot, I don't care if you can execute the best system in the world. So we're really trying to get the buy-in, not only from the parent group, but also from our instructors, that they're getting the basic skills, that they are understanding to build a solid foundation, that when Christmas comes and you're moving into your playoffs, you have the ability to now move into refining your breakouts and your ability to plan a power play or a penalty kill. So please, if you're seeing, maybe not what you as a parent might think should be happening right now, please understand there is a process. We are developing a foundation for your players to build them in success moving forward. We want to then introduce those team tactics. What is a team tactic? Your coaching staff knows what those are. They know how to get the resources. And if they don't, we have a great team that'll help them. And basically your tactic is how are you going to work together to win this game? And again, we want to reintroduce fun. So when you look at your practices, we were breaking technical skills. That's a lot of the actual breakdown of how do you shoot? How do you pass? How do you skate? That technique, right? So there's a large percentage of practices this year that are going to be technical skills practices. Why? Because they're at the beginning of their career. They're at the very beginning of their foundation. You wouldn't start building a massive house before we laid that foundation and gave it time to settle. We want it to last a long time. We want them playing hockey at a high level for as long as they can. Then you'll get into those tactics that how do we win? How do I use my skills? How do I think the game? How do I play the game? Then you get into that team play where the coaches really start to have fun with it at your tournaments and your playoffs. Like, what am I going to do with this group of players to help them be successful? That's your team play. And then again, that 5% strategy is where we understand that, third period, last couple minutes of the period, we might give it to the coaching staff and understand that they have a tactic and a strategy to help them win. Should that be happening on every single game? We will be communicating no. But if you're in a tournament, short-term competition, you're about to go for, a little bit of a prize, there is going to be that 5% strategy that we want to allow the coaches to coach the game. Go ahead, Bruce, we'll move forward.
Yep.
Attaboy.
For this one, actually, this is Whitney's much more capable of talking to the specifics of this. But one thing I will just comment on right now is that every year at the U11 level, everybody is complaining about the positions they play and they don't want to play defense or however it works. Those complaints come through all kinds of channels. They come up to me and I get written complaints about this stuff. What I will tell you is that Hockey Canada says you guys have to use all the positions in U11. You can't be a specialist. And as Whitney very eloquently said, you're developing, you're learning techniques, you're learning all the positions. You need to understand that. And that, that's what has to happen by rule effectively, not just because it's a preference by you. So anyway, I'll let Whitney talk about the rest of this.
So this, and I don't want to make us, as in myself, Bruce, or even your organization, seem like we're just these regurgitating drones from Hockey Canada. We're not. There is a lot of science based in these theories. And so what we want to just reiterate to you as the parent, because the reality is you're going to have these conversations with your athletes. They're going to be asking you like, Mom, why do I have to be on defense? I hate that position. Whatever their reasons are. And we're going to have to empower you as the parents to be able to have those dialogues so that, kids don't get discouraged. So the main reason, right, with all the dialogue that I've had with all the different types of different branches that talk about, this defense forward thing at this age group, this is a very young age to do what we call specializing in your position. The trends are that players who have potentially, said, I'm going to be a defenseman in U11, will flip-flop when U15 comes around. Doesn't always happen, but there are potential disadvantages of specializing. Just like how you've probably heard it a million times about multi-sport athletes getting specialized in one particular sport at such a young age is not good for what we call their physical literacy, their ability to catch, run, shoot, play, back, all of those things that make them able-bodied individuals. There's also that within now our sport, right? So at a very young age, we don't want to you're a forward, you're a defense. We want to educate both positions to the player's natural abilities. Some players will love life in backwards motion and they will gravitate to that defensive position because they love the feeling of backward skating. That being said, it is vital that a forward knows how to skate backwards if they are going to be able to play high performance hockey. You never look at a university, junior, any team and say that forward has no idea how to skate backwards. They must know how to do that for their position. The other benefit outside of just skills is knowledge. We find that when we didn't have players at a young age learning forwards and defense, not only were they only educated on their position, oh, I only know how to play defense, I have no idea what the forwards do, or the forwards are going, well, I don't know what the defense have to do, they just get us the pucks, we go score. When we look at the game now, you look at the game as a structure where it's more 5 individuals, and those that are at the high performance also include the goaltender. So you have 6 individuals actively on the ice working towards a common goal. We want to win the game. So if we limit the position, even within just the forward position, if our athletes are only limited to center or left wing or right wing, then really when you look at the evaluation scale of an athlete making a team, they are limited, unfortunately, kind of like a goalie is, to one of 2 spots. So another avenue when you talk about trying to have these conversations with your athletes at home who are frustrated, Mom, I didn't get to play forward, I wanted to play forward, Dad, I didn't want to play defense. You also can use it as, hey, they're teaching you how to play the whole game. They're teaching you how to know all those positions. That way, when you go and try and make your teams, and you don't know if you want to be defense or forward, you have 1 out of 15 spots to make that team. You have 1 out of 6 if you know you like defense, or 1 out of 9, as opposed to, I can only play center, I have 1 out of 3 chances to be on this team. So coaches who can use a player either as a forward or a defense always keep that person in the back of their mind, because they become what we call as a multi-tool player. So not only just for the physical skill development of these individuals, that they can learn all the skills. Every defenseman needs to learn how to score goals. They need to learn how to shoot. They need how to attack the net. Every forward needs how to cover the back of their net. So just even those physical skills in those positions, it is integral for them to learn that. It is also for them to have a future in high performance. It is important for them to learn as much of the game. So then when they're on the ice and they are playing their position, they understand what the other people do on the ice, and therefore become a better hockey sense player. So it is a tough transition, but there is a bigger picture that this will overall create better athletes. And it won't take somebody who maybe has a natural ability that develops as they progress into that Pee-wee 13 age group. Maybe they do have a natural ability of getting the puck in the back of the net. Yeah, let's put them at forward. We would have never known that if they never had a chance to educate them. So that's a really, really long, drawn out spiel about this, but it is important to have the awareness because you are in the U11 process. You will not see on the roster defense, forward. These are the top 9 forwards. You will see these are the top 15 if we're going 15, or if we're moving it to 18, these are the top 18. And when you see your assignments on the games, you will see roster assignment as, oh, okay, for this game, I'm playing defense. Oh, for this game, I'm playing forward. So just how, when I told you the transparency of the process of rotation is, we take into account, we're not putting the same 6 people always on defense, or the same people, you know what I mean? So we will be taking that into account. If you are someone who steps up and helps on the bench, and you're not on the bench of your child, you cannot be on their bench, you're on the opposite team, and you say, Whitney, I'm going to step up, I'm going to help, you're going to get that roster lineup, and it's going to be spelt out for you on which number jerseys are playing in which period and which spot. So I just wanted to be super clear. Another area, if this is really getting you down and making, it really upsetting, that underline highlighted at least until Christmas. So that's where I say the really heavy part of U11 with this pathway and this new model is that we educate you, we build that foundation. As you move, you're going to start to see players, gravitating towards D or forward. As a coach and as a parent, once you get more into your season and you start to get people, I'm comfortable with this, I'm comfortable with that, fill your boots. Go into a tournament at Christmas and have your defense play defense for the whole tournament, and your forwards play forwards, right? There's nothing wrong with that. We just want to make sure up until December, for those first 2 months and even into December, that those kids are getting educated on everything. And so that's why you're seeing this defense versus forward conversation. We move forward there. So I'll let Bruce kind of touch on some of the association costs at the U11 age level.
Sorry, my screen did let my mute pop down. We already gave the slide for the costs in the previous presentation. We thought in the U11, when we break down more of what you're paying for and where the money goes, you've got your base association U11 fee that you paid at registration. You pay the rep tryout fee, which then covers the cost of us getting independent evaluators in who do all the work to have a look at things, and they're arm's length, and there's a lot of them. And they eat pizza and have a great time, but they're doing a lot of work when they're doing it. The rep fee itself, you get from that, you get an additional weekly practice out of it. Practice ice that's not shared. So normally a recreational team would share ice with another recreational team, and they'd do simultaneous practices. Rep teams get their own ice. We have contracted coaches for many positions. So like the A1 teams, we gave a list at the very beginning of those coaches. We also have rep skill sessions from a service provider there. We do coach development and then the performance goalie school. So there's a lot of things that go into that to give additional exposure to the kids, the skills and the training that they need to excel beyond what they were when they started hockey, and they can be the best they can be. The team costs, once the teams are formed, you have to make sure that you're starting with something that's a little more robust typically, because you're now going to a lot of tournaments and things. You have to have a budget for your tournaments, exhibition games, team activities. Often the rep teams, because they go to tournaments more often, have activities or do other activities. And you can also pay for additional skill providers. Beyond that, the subtleties of that we'll make clear, but there is that option. And one of the key things, and this goes back to communication, is the team budget should be approved by the parent group with a meeting or some other method. I've been a manager for teams where they just said, go ahead and price it out, that's fine. Other teams really want to understand what's going on. They're not going to kick about it. They just want to understand where it's going and how the team's going to be successful with the budgeted costs. There's also optional programming that you can get in U11. There's a number on there of $640. Don't quote me on that one because that's from an older slide and we need to nail that stuff down. The transition of various people and things on the board, we haven't got a final number on these things. So that's our fault for not getting the exact numbers. And again, you know, like everything else, the expectation of the numbers is sportsmanship and following the code of conduct. Typically when you get into rep, if you're coming from the U9 world, it is a little more intense because people tend to be a little more intense, but we want to make sure it's an environment where everyone's valued, and winning is not the most important thing as they develop their careers. But what we really need is families to provide volunteer support at our association level, at the team level, because you guys make their experience the best it can be, and it's really the volunteers that make the season more than anything else. The other thing that I'll tell you, and this came from a presentation for both the U11 for both rec and recreational, is equal ice time are mandated by PCHA. So we need to make sure that it's every kid has to have the same amount of time on the ice regardless of you know what their situation is. And the other thing that we'll put in here, expectations for the team, is that multi-sports athletes are encouraged. But if you have a multi-sport athlete like in soccer or some other sport, taekwondo or whatever, work with the team and make sure they understand the conflicts that happen. You are in rep hockey, so there's a high expectation you're going to be there. Typically a high level Div 1 soccer player versus rep hockey, that's a tough one to balance. So just to be clear on that, you need to think through that and be clear on what the challenges are with it. So, Whitney?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And I also just want to touch base all of the ice times and everything that are used during this rep tryout process. Those are also where the fees, right? So your regular season fees are not subsidizing the rep tryout process. The rep tryout fees are paying for the additional ice and anything that has to come of that actual process. So I just want to make sure that nobody thinks like, holy moly, the assessors are getting all of this. No, we got to just make sure that we're covering all costs of the facilities and the whole process. So yeah, so we just want to remind you as parents, like, support your players, please. It's a stressful time, and it's also a time because there's a lot of emotion, and this may be your first time that you're going through it with your player. So the best thing that you can do is just try to keep their confidence up. You know what I mean? When you go into those working groups, as one of the parents on the call here asked, is there a potential to get feedback? Yeah, just reach out to me. You know, we do have a process, and if you want to know exactly what those processes are, please refer to our website. It's all laid out there for you. If you can't find it, then you can always fire off an email and we can send you a link that'll help you direct. But yeah, just really encourage your players, get lots of sleep, try not to get, you know, too invested in the social environment that it sacrifices their ability to compete, but just set them up for success. All right. All right. So specifically on our U11 division side, do we have any questions for tonight? So we can go through the same process. You can either put it in the chat box or you can put your hand up. And if we don't, then forever hold your keep, and may we have a wonderful kickoff tomorrow morning. Welcome and congratulations for making it to the start of your season.
I think we've talked them to death.
Awesome. I love it. So it is officially 8:21. Have yourselves a great evening. Say hi when you're out and about at the rink, and we will see you at UBC bright and early. Stay safe.